What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for Upset Alert Week 7. Last week was a really quiet week in terms of upsets. None of the 8 games that we picked turned out to be upsets. And I think it was only one upset. That was Arizona State over Washington. Who saw that one coming? So a very quiet week again in terms of upsets. Usually, again, 2 or 3 of the 8 games we pick will turn out to be upsets, and I think that's going to happen this week. I think we get back to a normal week in terms of upsets. For it to be an upset, it's got to be 4 points or more. The spread has to be 4 points or more. If it's less than that, it's not allowed to be in the video. We're picking the 8 games that we think are most likely to be upsets, not saying they all will be upsets. And we're going to go from the least likely to the most likely, starting with the least likely, and that would be Nebraska upsetting Purdue. This game will be at 7:30 Eastern Time on the Big Ten Network. Purdue's favored by 13.5. That seems like a pretty big number. I know Nebraska has not been great this year, but they've got a little confidence. They've won a couple of games in a row. There is a chance that they could pull off this upset. It'll be tough. I would pick Purdue, but I think it might be closer, though, than that 13.5 points. I think this game does potentially wind up being a 7 to 10 point game. I think this one's possible. One that I didn't put on here, if there's going to be a big upset, watch for Stanford Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a big favorite in that game. I am picking Notre Dame, but I think Stanford is better than their record would suggest. They played a really tough schedule so far. They almost won last week. It's just one of those where if Notre Dame doesn't show up, Stanford is desperate. Perhaps they pull off an upset, but that one it wasn't likely enough for me to put it into the top 8, so I didn't put it into the video, but keep an eye on that game as well. Minnesota, Illinois, this one's at noon Eastern Time on the Big Ten Network. Minnesota's favored by 6.5 on the road against a top 25 team. That tells you right there Vegas thinks that Illinois is overrated playing at home as a top 25 team. Again, they are underdogs by almost a touchdown. I agree with that. I think Minnesota is the better team. I think Illinois deserves to be ranked because they are 5-1, but I've said I don't expect them to really stay in that top 25 very long. Minnesota's a good football team. If Illinois wins this game, then I think that they become maybe the front runners in the Big Ten West. So this is a huge game. You look at Purdue, Nebraska; those teams right now are tied for first place as well. So so there's some big games in the Big Ten West, and it's not Iowa, it's not Wisconsin, it's not the teams you thought that it might be. No, it's Purdue and Nebraska, Minnesota and Illinois. Those are the big games that could determine the Big Ten West, as crazy as that sounds. Moving on, North Carolina against Duke. This one will be at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on the ACC Network. North Carolina favored by only a touchdown. They are playing on the road. It's a rivalry. Duke is just better than we expected them to be. And they're 4-2. They play Kansas tough. I mean, this is not a bad Duke team. North Carolina's defense has been atrocious at times this year. Played a little better against Miami last week. And we feel like, North Carolina's going to score points in this game. But a couple of turnovers, you never know. This one could turn the other way. I like the Tar Heels to take care of business, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Duke did pull off an upset. How about Penn State and Michigan? This is the big noon game on Fox. Michigan favored by 7. I feel like these teams, and I did a full preview and prediction on this game, I feel like these teams are very even. I think on a neutral field, this one it would be hard to predict. I think if they played 10 times on a neutral field, it would probably be 5-5 or 6-4. It would be very close. But Michigan's playing at home. That could be the difference. It's all about J.J. McCarthy in this one. If he can play like the quarterback that I think he's capable of being, I think Michigan will win this game. But Penn State is, they've got the veteran quarterback, Sean Clifford. They're just as talented as Michigan if you look at just their overall roster. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Penn State pulls off this upset. I feel like most people are just assuming Michigan's going to roll in this game. But again, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we did see an upset. Penn State's a good football team. How about Wisconsin and Michigan State? This one's at 4 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox. Wisconsin favored by 7.5. I know they played better last week, but overall they have not played very well this year. Michigan State hasn't played well either. Both of these teams have been major disappointments. And it could just be about which team gets up for this game, which team wants it more, which team is still hopeful to have a good season. Again, both teams have really struggled. Wisconsin winning last week maybe gives them some confidence. Michigan State hung around with Ohio State for a little bit last week, so I don't know if that's going to give them any confidence or not. But they're probably the more desperate team at 2-4. So this is one that, I have a hard time picking this game. I don't know what's going to happen. I think there's a chance Michigan State could win it. So definitely the Badgers need to be on upset alert. How about Kansas and Oklahoma? Noon Eastern time on ESPN2. This one's crazy. Oklahoma's favored by 9 points against they're 3-3 against a 5-1 top 25 team. That tells you that Vegas thinks that Kansas is overrated. There are other things going into this. Jalen Daniels out with an injury for Kansas. That's a big story there. But Beans played pretty well for them at quarterback. He played a lot last year. I don't think that it's a huge deal. Oklahoma getting Dylan Gabriel back, it will be big for them. You look at Oklahoma's season, and it looks like they've been so terrible. Kansas State was not a blowout. They had chances in that game. TCU, in that game, Dylan Gabriel goes out with the injury, so we really have not seen them play really bad or lose a game with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback besides that one game against Kansas State, and it was a good game, and Kansas State's a good football team. So I think Oklahoma, people are overreacting a little bit. This team is not terrible. They're not great. They're not going to go to the Big 12 championship or anything, but I think they're still a decent team playing at home. I can see why they're favored, but Kansas is a team that's fired up this year, and we've seen that. They've played better than Oklahoma all year. They've got a chance to go on the road and pull off this upset. That number at 9 just is really surprising. I'm not shocked that Oklahoma is favored, but seeing that number at 9, that is a big number. I think Kansas probably at least keeps this game within one score. All right, Alabama, Tennessee, 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Alabama favored by 7. Did a full preview and prediction on this game, and it's really all about Bryce Young. If Bryce Young does not play, Tennessee wins this game. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. I feel confident that Tennessee will win this game, and they probably win it by multiple scores. I think they're that good, and I think Alabama needs Bryce Young that badly. I think Bryce Young will play, though. It seems like all the signs are pointing towards him playing in this game. And I just think that it's going to be a game that comes down to the wire, maybe who has the ball last. If it's a shootout, it's one that I could really see going either way. I did pick Alabama to win, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tennessee pulls off this upset. So yes, of course, Alabama on upset alert on the road. College game day, going to be a crazy atmosphere. Cannot wait for this game. I just cannot wait to see what happens. And then finally, Oklahoma State and TCU. This one's also at 3:30 Eastern time. It'll be on ABC. I doubt many people will be watching this game unless they're TCU or Oklahoma State fans, or maybe if Alabama-Tennessee turns into a blowout. But TCU's favored by 4. Should be a very close game. Teams are pretty even. I could see it going either way. It's barely on the video because that spread's all the way down at 4, but it's a toss-up game for me. I'd probably go with TCU because of the home field advantage, but Oklahoma State absolutely can win this game. Like I said, it's one that could go either way, so definitely put TCU on upset alert against a top 10 Oklahoma State team. Those are my picks for this week. Which games do you think will actually be upsets? Maybe there's a game that I missed. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.